Now let's talk about it. If you highlight, because I think the hidden cost, and then I'm just, and then we'll move into the logistics aspects about the team, the time they took, and tell us a little bit about that. What undertaking is required here? Because if someone's here that wants to do this, which I take it that they're attending this particular webinar is because they have thought about it. What about the logistics in terms of the staff training or the staff skill sets and everything? Give us and tell us about as you said, the hidden cost is the team time spent on certain areas.
So the hidden cost in terms of the sort of the areas that kind of ended up being time sucks.
Correct.
Through this. Yeah. So I mean, I guess the areas that we thought were going to be, real time sucks perhaps didn't quite transpire. So it's worth just sort of flagging that sort of those expectations on where we thought we were going to be investing time, that didn't quite play out so much. Although we did see heavier areas and some unexpected areas. So where we thought we would be spending a lot of time would be in physically, working with that production company, which don't forget, it's a theater production company, right? So they don't have the commercial nuance that a sort of an event production company would have. So we weren't clearly ever going to put them customer facing, and we thought there was going to be a kind of a lot of work there. There was less work there than we thought, and that came through from kind of using what we've learned through our awards program and kind of managing that process through. So that was actually more manageable than we thought. But the areas where we spent more time than anticipated was in working out how we were integrating the studio with Zoom, which is where we had some of our live panels. So it was like, How do we make sure that because what we wanted a sense of immediacy in the studio. So we wanted a point whereby the studio was broadcasting live and the audience were interacting with it and the speakers were interacting with that studio as a hub. So we were like building it like a news channel. That was, it's cross between a news channel and a morning show. That's what we wanted. Mm-hmm. And the technicalities about making sure that worked, and that the interplay between, a pre-recorded panel session where we wanted them to have that sense of urgency in the panel. When a panel session is pre-recorded, your panelists act very differently because they can't see the attendees scrolling through. And, they're doing it late at night or whatever it was. So that for us was something that took time to be able to kind of coach them around that. Mm-hmm. And there was also, there were also challenges working out how much could be live and how much would be pre-recorded, because getting that balance right, in an ideal world, we'd make the whole thing live, but the risk in that is very, very high. So we needed to strike that balance. And the other thing that took time, frankly, was literally scripting it and actually building out the studio, the sort of the run order minute by minute. It's done to such an nth degree that you don't do in a live event. In a live event, you've got the kind of walk off stage and it doesn't matter. Mm-hmm. You've got hosts with earpieces and you're kind of down to a 3, 2, 1, we're moving to this next segment. It was very, very closely coordinated and choreographed. And that was unexpected. That requires an element of almost military grade discipline that I think took us all by chance. And getting sponsors on board with that, Ricardo, is hard.
Right. I think you highlighted a couple of things. One thing that you said that your team spend a lot of time working very closely with the sponsors to align them to that process. And I think also the talking to other leaders that when I'm talking about the other 6 organizations that we've featured recently, they all said the absolute fundamental key when you're doing this live broadcasting, whether you're having some pre-recorded and some live, is the scripting. You need to know the detail of what's going to happen at every single time, and it's been highlighted again and again. And that's kind of where event and media business don't have experience in that is, and we've had it in situations where we need to understand, writing word for word what is going to be said and the timings, and it's very difficult. So one of the key takeaways that I want you guys to think in terms of the audience is think about the running order. Needs to be always, if there's any doubt, look at the running order, and everyone needs to be aligned with the running order. So that's kind of pretty interesting. So, and in what sort of way did you guys spend so much time with the sponsors? Was there anything in particular that they were going to do that required that kind of more kind of?
Yeah, there were. So our two of our major sponsors would traditionally have obviously done an opening keynote, and were then kind of prominently featured in various panels, etc. throughout. And there was a challenge there, how do we get those, with a high production quality on the event, how do we make sure that if we are passing across to them for a keynote, that we've not got them on an open MacBook, tucked away in the corner of their house type thing, because the thing jars. It's right. How do you make that work? And I remember we went through a number of sort of edits and sort of recordings, as it were, to get that right, and really persuading them to perhaps invest a little bit of time and also a little bit of money on their side to do that properly, so that they could kind of understand the benefits. That was really important. And, there were some battles that were won and there's some battles that were lost on that. But one of the real plus sides was that for one sponsor in particular, we actually used it as an opportunity to kind of elevate who our point of contact with that sponsor. And we ended up with their CEO doing the piece, who we wouldn't have had access to previously. And that kind of then unlocked an internal video budget or whatever it was with that client. And so we ended up with a higher quality piece. So it was an unexpected win that reflected well on the event, and reflected very well on the sponsor.